talk about activists throwing up a Gandhi shield when you talk about use of force and violence. What do you mean by that?
Well, that's pretty interesting, that a lot of times if I talk about fighting back, the response by the audience is oftentimes fairly predictable, which is a lot of sort of mainstream peace and social justice activists will put up what I've taken to calling a Gandhi shield. And what that means is they say the names Gandhi, Dalai Lama, Martin Luther King again and again real fast to keep all evil thoughts at bay. And when I would do the same talk for like grassroots environmental activists, a lot of times they would have the same response, but they'd come up to me afterwards and say, "Thank you so much for bringing this up." And then when there are other groups of people that when I would talk to them, the response would be entirely different. And this would be prisoners.
You've worked in prisons?
Yeah, I worked at Pelican Bay State Prison. I taught creative writing there for 4 or 5 years. And with gang kids, with victims of domestic violence, family farmers. These other groups, a lot of times, if you talk about the possibility of fighting back, a lot of times they say, "Come on, tell us something we don't know. Let's go, bro." And the difference, I realized, it took me a while to realize that the difference is that for those latter groups, for the most part, American Indians are definitely in that category too, violence is not some abstract or theoretical question to be puzzled through. It's simply part of life. And that doesn't mean you participate, it doesn't mean you don't participate. It just means that you deal with it. And that's a lot different than setting up some sort of preset rules.
Derrick Jensen, we let people know that I was going to be interviewing you, and a lot of people wrote in questions. And a few of them asked you to talk about what they call you advocating the use of violence. You have written, quote, "What I want is for all activists to act like they are serious about their resistance, and that might include assassinations." What do you mean by that?
The world is being killed. And if they were space aliens who had come down from outer space and they were systematically deforesting the planet and vacuuming the oceans and changing the climate, what would we do? There are 2 million dams in the United States. There's about 70,000 dams over 6.5 feet tall. And if we only took out one of those dams every day, it would take 200 years to take them all out. And I want to be really clear that I don't advocate violence any more than I advocate nonviolence. What I advocate is looking at the circumstances and deciding what would be the appropriate action, both personally and socially. And we can look at this in World War II. A great example is that the Danish resistance in World War II, we're all aware of how when the Jews had to put the stars on, the king put the first star on. That's great, but that's because Hitler declared Denmark a model protectorate. And if somebody in Poland would have tried that, it's like, great, you can join them on the cattle car. The tactic wouldn't have worked. And so I think it's really important, once again, to ask ourselves what we want, and then to ask ourselves how we're going to get there.